Hello everyone, welcome to Tutorials by Decade. My name is Decade, and in this video we are going to start adding NPCs. Now before I begin with this video, I released a video a few days ago that is very important. It is about upgrading Unity to 6.2. If you haven't watched that video, or if you're not sure of how to upgrade Unity, please go back and watch that video. Even if you don't watch it in its entirety, at least get the basic information to be able to upgrade to 6.2, so that way you're on the same version that I am. Some of the stuff that I'm going to be showing you from this video forward might be a little bit different from the previous version, so yeah, it is very important that you upgrade to 6.2. Plus there was also a security leak with 6.1 that supposedly was fixed in 6.2, so upgrading would be a good idea. So if you're unsure how to do that, I just released a video on that a few days ago, so please go back and watch that. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into this video. We are going to add an NPC. It's just going to be a basic NPC that is going to face the direction of the player, and then it's going to have one line of dialogue. That's all this NPC is going to do, but it is a good start for what we plan on doing with NPCs, which is adding the players being able to move around, not the players, the NPCs being able to move around in a defined area, and eventually branching dialogue. I'm not going to get into that just yet, but we are going to be doing branching dialogue at some point. So before we begin coding, we need to do a couple things in Unity. The very first thing we need to do is add a UI and a canvas. Now you notice I'm doing this in my little house scene here, but you can do this on the main screen as well, the overworld, but wherever you're doing this is where you're going to be doing most of the work. You can add this in multiple places, but I'm just doing this in the house for right now because this is where I want my NPC to be. So when we add a canvas, it just says canvas on there. We're going to leave it as is. We are going to come over here to render mode. We're going to go to screen space camera. And then we are going to go down to here where it says canvas scaler. We are going to go to scale with screen size. And regardless of what your final resolution is going to be, we want to set this to 1920 by 1080, which is standard high definition. Once we do that, we're going to right click. We are going to go to UI, and we are going to go to an image, and we're going to name this the dialogue bubble. So for this, we're going to need an image. We're going to go to our sprites, our world, and we're going to go to our objects. I did not do this on this sprite sheet yet, so pixels per unit, 16. Filter mode, point no filter, compression to none, hit apply. And then once that takes effect, we're going to go to open sprite editor. We are going to slice. We are going to do grid by cell size. We're just going to do 16 by 16 and hit slice. Then we're going to hit apply. And now we're going to actually modify one of these sprites a little bit. So we're going to go here to this little dialog bubble, and we are going to click on each of these little 16 by 16 blocks and hit delete and leave one of them. Then we're going to expand that one to be 48 by 48, as you can see in the lower right hand corner here, so it takes up the entire sprite. Now you'll notice these green little blocks here. Well, what we want to do is we want to grab and drag all of those to look something like this. And if you accidentally grab the blue line, it's okay. You can easily fix that. So we want it to look something like this. Now this is slicing a sprite. And you'll see what this does here in a minute, but to try to explain it to you, what it does is these little corners right here, or should I say these corners right here, are not going to really change, whereas the little cross here, they will slice and duplicate themselves to fit the size that it needs to fit. You'll see that here in just a minute. So whenever you're done with all of that, we're going to hit apply. We're going to close this out. We're going to click on our dialog bubble again. And see where it says source image, none? We want to click on this little line down here for our objects. We want to find that dialog bubble. And there it is. So we're just going to click and drag that to there. And now we're going to double click on the canvas, and you'll notice the canvas kind of zooms out from our scene. That is what we want. We want to work in this little square here. This is our canvas. And we're going to go to our dialog bubble. And we want that bubble to be, one second here. Okay. Where we want this bubble to be at. First, we want to change the width. We want to make that 1920, so it's the width of the whole screen. Height-wise, we want it 500, and our Y position should be -292. That'll put this near the bottom of the screen. Now, if we click on our game view, you'll notice that our bubble is there. Our game view, we don't want free aspect. We want it to be full HD. So there you go. You can do 4K if you want. Really, there's not too much of a difference. But there's our bubble. Now you notice that our bubble is not see-through. So if we come over here to color and click on it, and where A is for our alpha, we want to change that to 155. That way it's partially see-through. Now that that's done, we want to right-click on bubble. We want to go to UI, and we want to go to TextMesh Pro. And we're just going to name this dialog text. And then what we want to do for now is in the text field, we want to change that to say whatever, just as a default. So for now, I'm just going to put the dialog text. Since this is going to be a white background, we don't want white text, we want black text. So we'll change that to black. We want our font size to be 72. We don't want bold or italicized there. And we want the position to be the width 1800, the height to be 300, the position should be 7, and we want our alignment to be centered and centered. So it'll look something like this. Now that that's done, we are going to zoom back into our house here. And we're going to add our NPC. So if we go to our sprites, go to characters, go to players, we're going to use any of the sprite sheets for any of the characters that we're not using for our player character. So I do believe I use player character 4, so I can use 1, 2, or 3. I'm just going to go with 1. And I did not slice it or anything, so pixels per unit 16. Filter mode is point no filter. Compression to none. We're going to hit apply. Open the sprite editor. Slice. Grid by cell size. Should be 16. Should be 32. Hit slice. Hit apply. And we're good to close that out. And now we can just drag the first one and drop it wherever. We want to move the position to 0, 0. We want the sorting layer to be on the player. We want the ordering layer to be -1. So there's a few things that we need to add to the NPC. First, we want to change the name. Right now, we'll just do NPC, but if you have an actual name for your NPC, you can put that there. We need to add a box collider. So we're going to put in box collider 2D. We're going to edit that box collider to be just as big as the player. forgive the background noise if you guys are hearing all that. My eldest daughter is home and doesn't know how to be quiet when I say I'm recording. But anyway, so we want the box collider to be the size of the NPC. Yeah, that should be good right there. Now, there's nothing else to really add to this except for an animator. I forgot about that. So we want to add an animator, and we're going to do the animation here in just a moment. But this is all we need to add for now. We are going to be creating a script for the NPC. But let's get that animation done real fast. So if we click on our animation tab and we make sure our NPC is selected, we can create a new animation. We want to put the animations in our animation folder. We need to create a new folder called NPCs. And then in here, we'll just put NPC1 or whatever the name of the NPC is. And here's where we get to name the animations. Now, I think I touched on this when we did animation for the player. When it comes to animations, you want to make the names unique. As you build your game, you're going to get a ton of different animations, and you're going to see here in just a moment that there's no filter. Like, it doesn't separate it for each individual thing. Like, whenever you go to put in an animation, it'll find literally every single animation that you have. So you can imagine if you have 10 different enemies, 3 different NPCs plus the player, just that alone is a ton of animations, let alone how big your game is. Like, it's going to add more to that. Not to mention that if you have items that animate, such as treasure chest or whatever, it can get out of control. So naming is very important. So however you want to do it is completely up to you, as long as you're able to find your animations. So for me, I'm just going to do NPC1 underscore idle S for idle south. And then we're going to hit save. And apparently somehow doing all that changed the DPI of my mouse, so we'll get rid of that. Okay, I get it. Go away. Anyway, so for idle south, it's just the very first one on here. We're going to click and drag, and there we go. And now we're going to do the same thing for every direction. So NPC1 underscore idle, we'll do, I think, east is next. And then for east, yep, just grab that one. Then we'll do north next, so NPC1 underscore idle N. For north, there we go. And then one more for NPC1 on 1 underscore idle W for west. And there we go. And then as we've done with the player before, we're going to go into the animator, highlight all that, delete that, right click, new state from blend tree. And we're just going to name that the face tree. We need to add a float, move X, another float, move Y, click on the face tree, double click the face tree, click on the blend tree here, change the blend type to 2D simple directional. The parameters, we're going to use that move X and move Y we just put in there. And once we do that, we can right click and delete blend. Now we're going to add 4 motion fields. And then for the first motion field, it should be 0, -1. And that will be, and again, this is what I mean, like, you see how many animations we have already, and all we have is walk, idle, and idle for an NPC. Can you imagine how it's crazy it's going to get when you have a bunch of other animations in here? So you have a search bar up here, so if you know the name that you're looking for, you can just type in NPC, and you notice all the ones that you don't want go away. So this is south, so we're going to click on south. Then this should be 1, 0. That should be our NPC east. So that one, 0, 1. And this should be north. And then -1, 0, and that should be our west. Once we're done with that, we can go back to the scene, and that is all I believe we need to do right now in Unity. So now we can actually start working on our code. So if we go to our script, we can right-click, create folder, and we could do NPCs. And then we can open that up, right-click, create mono behavior script, and we're just going to name this base NPC. Once we're done with that, we can double-click that, and I already had Visual Studio open, so that made it nice and easy for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all of this here. We're going to go up to here, using Unity Engine, and we're going to add using TMPRO, using Unity Engine.UI, and using Unity Engine.input system. All right, now that those are in there, we can start doing a couple things here. First, we're going to make our header. So header and NPC settings. And then we're going to make our first tooltip. That's going to be the name of this NPC. We are going to serialize the field. And we're going to do a private string NPC name. And we're going to default that for now to villager. In Unity, you'll be able to change the names. Then we're going to do another tooltip. We're going to do the dialogue for this NPC. We're going to do a text area of 2, 5. And I think I went over this already before, but you'll see what that does in Unity once we get back there. Then we're going to serialize the field. Then we're going to do a private string dialogue. I messed that up. Dialogue line equals, and we're going to default this to just hello there. Then we're going to do another tooltip. Actually, I have to do the tooltip. How close the player needs to be to talk. And then serialize that field. And then private float interaction range, which is going to be 2F. And now that that's done, we're going to come down here and we're going to go to make another header. And we're going to do references. And then we're going to do our first tooltip in references. That's going to be the player transform. We're going to serialize that field, and it's going to be a private transform, and then player. Then tooltip, UI, bubble image, and serialize the field, private game object dialog. Apparently I'm having trouble spelling today. Another tooltip, the TMP text inside the bubble. We're going to serialize that field. We're going to do a private TMP text dialog text. Then a couple things we need to do down here. We're going to do a private animator, and private bool is interacting equals false. Private bool interact pressed equals false. And then we need to do a private. What did we name that? Did we name that player input? Yes, we did. Player input and an input. So what we're doing here is we're accessing the player input that we created. As a matter of fact, there is one more thing that we need to do in Unity, so I'm kind of glad that we stopped there for a second. So once all that compiles, go to our input player and see how we have this player input here. Well, we created a C# script for that, but what we need to do is add some interactions. So where it says actions here, there's that little plus all the way over here. We're going to click on that. This new action, we're going to name it interact. Then we're going to go down here where it says no bindings. If you don't see that, just click on this little triangle. And then the first binding, we're going to click on the path. We're going to click listen. We're just going to hit E. And then there's keyboard E. And then if you have a joystick, you can hit that little interaction, or the little plus, hit add binding. And then listen again. And then hit whatever button you want on the joypad. I'm going to do A, which is button south. So we're just going to click on that. And we're going to hit save asset. And then it should automatically regenerate the C# class. So now that that's done, let's go back into that script and we can continue working. So now we need to do a private void awake. And in here, we're going to do input equals new player input. And then input dot gameplay, because that's what we named the it in Unity here. I'll show you real fast. If I pull up the right one, there we go. So our action map was named gameplay, and our action was named interact. So it's important that you remember what you name your things, as the theme of most of my videos. But anyway, input.gameplay.interact.performed plus equals ctx, and then interact pressed equals true. So what this line of code right here is going to do is every single time that the player pushes interact, it's going to change the interact bool to true. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what if the player pushes interact when he or she is outside of the range to interact with the player? Well, we're going to fix that in some of the code, so don't worry. So now we need to do a private void on enable. And if this autofills, we're just going to get rid of all that, because this is just one simple line, input.enable. Then we need to do a private void on disable. And again, if all that does that, we're just going to do this in the one simple little line, is input disable. So all this is doing is just enabling or disabling the inputs based on whether or not this script is active. So now we're going to do a private, not a void, void start. And then we're going to do animator equals get component animator. We're going to do the dialog bubble dot set active to false, just in case we forget to do that in Unity. And then if player equals null, meaning we didn't fill in the player ourselves in the Unity inspector, player equals game object dot find game object with tag player dot transform. And that is all we need for start. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do a private void update. And in here, we're just going to go player interaction. That's all we need to do, and we're actually going to create that right here. So we're going to do a private void player interaction. And we're going to fill that in a little bit. Zoom tight. Sorry, again, daughter. Anyway, if player equals null, then we're simply just going to return. That way we're not going to do anything. Now what we do need to do is figure out the distance between the player and the NPC. And in order to do that, we're going to use this little code right here. We're going to do float distance equals vector2 dot distance transform dot position player dot position. So what this is going to do is it's going to get the distance between the player and the NPC. Now we're going to face the player when nearby. So what we're going to do here is if distance is less than or equal to the interaction range, then we're going to face player, which we'll do that code here in a little bit. Then we're going to do if interact pressed then we're going to do start interaction else end interaction. Again, we're going to do all three of these here in just a moment. And remember when I said we're going to check to make sure that interaction is not pressed. Well, here's where we're going to do interact pressed equals false. And then after all of that, we're going to do an else if is interacting. It already did it for me. Then we're going to do end interaction. And again, we're going to be doing those here right now. So if you get these little errors, ignore that. We are going to fix those. The first one is private void face player. And in order to do this, we're going to get the direction of the player. So we're going to do vector2 direction equals player dot position minus transform dot position. So all that's going to do is figure out where the player's at compared to where the NPC's at. And then we're going to do if mathf dot abs direction x is greater than mathf dot abs direction y. So essentially what we're doing there is checking if the player is north, south, east, or west of us. That's the best way for me to put that. If the player is horizontal, then we're going to do animator dot set float move x direction dot x greater than 0 Then a question mark is 1 or -1. So what that's going to do is it's going to check to see, or it's going to set that move x to whatever the direction x is, as long as that direction x is greater than 0. And if it is, it's going to figure out, is it positive or negative, essentially. And it's going to change it to a 1 or a -1. And then the animator dot set float move y to 0. And if it's not either of those, then we're going to do else. And then this is vertical facing. We're going to do essentially the same thing, but we're going to flip-flop the x and y. So we're going to do animator dot set float move y direction dot y greater than 0 question mark, and it already kind of figured out what I was trying to do, so I just hit tab to fill that in. And then animator dot set float move x to 0. And that's all we need to do to face the player. So our error for face player should have went away. Now we need to come down here and do a private void start interaction. And is interacting is true. The dialog bubble dot set active to true. And that dialog text dot text is going to equal the dialog lines, or the dialog line, I should say. So that's all we need to do for start interaction is set interacting to true, set the dialog box to be active, and change the text to whatever we have that text set to. And again, we'll show you that in Unity. Right now it's just defaulted to hello there, but you can change that to whatever. And now we're going to do a private void end interaction. And essentially all we're going to do is just turn everything off. So is interacting is false, and dialog bubble dot set active the false. And that's all we need to do to get this working. So from here, we're just going to save that. We have an error up here. What's the error? And I spelled end interaction wrong. End interaction. There we go. I should have gotten rid of that error. So now we should be good to go to move over into Unity. I'm just checking something real fast. All right. So now that that's done compiling, it's going to give us a warning that we haven't, ignore that we haven't used the NPC name yet. We're going to later, so just ignore that. As a matter of fact, you can go to the console and clear that warning out. If we click on our NPC, we can add a component, and we're going to do the NPC base NPC script. And again, here's where you're going to be able to name your NPC. Again, it's defaulted to villager, but you can name the NPC whatever you want. So remember when we did that text area 2.5? So that's going to give us 2 lines of text, and it'll expand up to 5 lines of text. But here's where you're going to put whatever you want the NPC to say. Here's the interaction range, so essentially how close the NPC needs to be to the player for the player to be able to interact. And then player, it will automatically find the player based on the player tag, so we don't need to do anything here. And as you can see over in the hierarchy, there is no player anyway because we didn't add one here. Dialog bubble is simply the dialog bubble, and dialog text is simply the dialog text. So with all of that in place, we can hit Control S or Command S to save. We can go to our test scene here, and we can hit play, and we'll see if this works. So here's our character, and we're going to enter the house. There's our NPC. And oh, there we go. So why is this being weird? So the NPC is following us. That's good. But interact is not working. Like it popped up once or twice, and then that was it. Let's see. Is everything's here like it should be. There's the player. Dialog bubble, dialog text. Dialog bubble and text are right there. So when I hit E, it popped up briefly, and then it. So, what did I mess up? Let's find out. So private void, start interaction, is interacting to true, dialog bubble. Oh. No player interactions right there. Huh. Interact pressed is there. If interact. Oh. I forgot to add all this fun stuff in here. Alright, so here where it says interact press, let me make sure Unity is not running. Pretty sure I stopped it. Yeah. So here where it says start interaction, if interact pressed, I forgot to put some stuff in here. So we're going to do if not is interacting. Then we're going to do start interaction. And then here we're going to do else end interaction. And then that interaction pressed equals false should actually be there. Right? Right. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I got confused by my own notes. But yeah, now that that's fixed, again, it should look like this. Now that that's fixed, let's go over to Unity and let's see if it works the way it's supposed to. So let's hit play. Let's head on into the house. NPC follows me around. See, I don't like the fact that it's doing that, but it works. Like, I literally have my test the exact same way, and it works just fine. So I wonder why it is not working while I'm recording the video. Wonder if there's anything else I missed. No, input plus equals CTX. Yeah, that's right. Okay, phase player, got that. If interact pressed. If not is interacting, start interaction. Else end interaction. Interaction pressed is false. Else, oh, else if is interacting. No, oh, I know what I put this in the wrong place. Get rid of that one. Yeah. Yeah, get rid of that one. Oops. I promise I'll be all right. So it should now look like this. If distance less than or equal to interaction range, face player, if interaction pressed, if not already interacting, start the interaction, else end interaction, and then interaction pressed should equal false. And then else if should fall under this if. So else if is interacting, end interaction. So let's save that and let's try this one last time and make sure I didn't screw up anything else. Come on. There we go. Let's enter that house. NPC follows the player around. Perfect. There we go. So from here, if the player leaves the range, it automatically ends the interaction. And if you hit E again, or whatever you set your interaction up to, it stops that interaction. Now let's just exit the house, enter the house, exit the house, enter the house. There we go. All right. So we are all good. So with all of that out of the way, I apologize that this video is a little bit longer than I anticipated, but we are now up and running with NPC, a very basic NPC, but an NPC nonetheless. Again, if you didn't get the message at the beginning of the video, please watch the video before this, as we have upgraded Unity to 6.2. It is very important that you do that. But now that that is out of the way, if you liked this video and you learned anything from it, make sure you give it the big old thumbs up. It does help me out, and I do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe so you do not miss anything. I do have videos like this coming out all the time, and I don't want you to miss anything, especially important things like upgrading Unity to 6.2. And now that that's done, as always, thank you. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.